Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media, all of our channels and networks. I'm Mike Morales, invading your personal space, just like that. That gentleman out there is
Todd Mayville in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado.
headbutting me. Oh my God. Todd and I have been spending the afternoon together tasting tequila, if you hadn't known, if you didn't know that. But this one is the brand new iteration of Astral. And what makes this so unique is that the original Astral, we have tasted, it was myself and Alex Perez tasted Astral and Sombra when it was still owned by Mr. Betts, who was the sommelier who started the brands. And they were made at different distilleries at that point. Sold the brands. I don't know where Sombra is being made, if it's still being made, but Astral kind of relaunched not too long ago when it was scooped up by Diageo. So a major distiller. I just broke the seal off of my bottle. And so I think what we're going to do is just pour it in our, I'm going to pour mine in a handy dandy Glencairn.
Okay, I got my Glencairn also. So
we're going to go there. Todd, we were talking off camera. How long was this being aged? Do we have
1 year? It says 1 year in American oak barrels, and it's very, very light for a new barrel.
Right. Well, it's a once used barrel because technically. Now, is this bourbon or whiskey? Did they say?
Bourbon.
Bourbon. Okay.
Yep.
And there is a difference.
Yep.
And Todd can tell us what the difference is between bourbon and whiskey as far as flavor.
So bourbon is going to be a little bit on the sweeter side because of the corn, right? You've got a corn base to it. So it's going to be a little bit sweeter. The barrel depends how long you're going to have it in the barrel, really. And then, of course, whether it's Kentucky or Colorado or Illinois or wherever, because American bourbon can be made anywhere in the U.S., not just Kentucky. A lot of people can think only Kentucky. That's not true. And like, so for example, one of my favorite tequila or my favorite bourbons is a local Colorado bourbon, and they use a specific type of corn called Olathe sweet corn, and it's from the western slope of Colorado, and it's just amazing. It's almost like you know, the Cracker Jack popcorn, the buttery. Yeah, it's freaking delicious. Probably one of my favorite bourbons ever.
Okay. All right. But Tennessee whiskey can only be made in Tennessee, right?
Only made in Tennessee. Yep. You can have
but bourbon you can make anywhere else. That's interesting.
Yep. Okay. It was Tennessee whiskey. You have Tennessee style of whiskey, and it's filtered through maple charcoal, blah, 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 all these rules. But yeah, it has to be made in Tennessee.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. But it's still made with corn, still a corn base.
Yeah. Still made with corn.
Now,
at least.
Somebody once explained to me that bourbon enters sweet and finishes dry, whereas whiskey enters dry, finishes sweet. Is that?
It depends on the whiskey. Now here's where it's kind of interesting. Like with rye, for example, rye tends to be a spicier whiskey unless it's 100% rye, in which case it tends to be a little bit sweeter. It gets spicier when you introduce barley. Now, you'd use barley because you want to kickstart the fermentation process, because rye is a pain in the ass to distill.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah. Anyway.
See, that's why he's my go-to guy for all this. You and Eric Zandona. I would probably sit and watch you two guys do a tasting and go and not completely go over my head, not understand any of this. And I'd be okay with that because I'd be learning stuff. I'd be taking notes because that's the way it works for me. So this is. But again, I agree with Todd. This is fairly light for a year. And the rules of whiskey and bourbon is you only use a barrel once. And after that, the secondary market is where it explodes. You know, tertiary, I don't even know what the numbers are. You know, when you see the barrel at Costco or Walmart, where you can use it as a planter, it's done. It's history. You can't be using it anymore.
That's why you see, like, you know, scotches and rums and gosh, and all kinds of stuff aged in bourbon barrels. You only use bourbon barrel once and off it goes.
Yeah, but they said, like I said prior, I said this in the Reposado tasting, you just sell it to yourself. You sell it to your other subsidiary. You know, like Diageo will sell this to, you know, Captain Morgan and, you know, their whiskeys and their bourbons and whatever. So, you know, or their tequilas for that matter.
Yeah.
Wow. Now the legs and tears on this one stream like Netflix. They're not, they're not clinging. They're not clinging to the glass on this one.
Yeah, that's a quick movement. A lot faster than the Repo was.
Yeah.
And actually a lot faster than the other tequila we tasted earlier.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot faster.
And that one took forever. That one was really shy. Actually, that first one was a Cristalino Reposado. And
that took a lot longer than these two. Yeah.
These just stream right away. And again, not a bad thing. It just gives you an idea of what the mouthfeel is going to be once you ingest it. So sweet on that nose.
Very.
Yeah, it's much sweeter than the Reposado. I mean, almost instantly.
Yeah.
What do you call this? Is it caramel, like allspice, baking spices?
I mean, like, see, I got more caramel off the Reposado than I'm off of this. It's almost like I'm getting more like a
brown sugar.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you. What kind of sugar am I smelling here?
Well, it's not Mexican sugar. That would be piloncillo, but you generally use that for a mixto.
Right.
You smell that right off the bat, but
almost like a sponge sugar kind of thing, like
okay,
candy,
like cotton candy.
Yeah,
but not as offensive as cotton candy. Just,
like the brown sugar, like a spun brown sugar, I guess.
Yeah. It's not giving us the. I don't know if you were ever at a supermarket where somebody's dropped a bag of sugar.
Oh yeah,
and you're standing underneath it, and you get hit with that, and it goes right up your nose. It's like it's bad. It's like alcohol up your nose.
Yeah,
and so you're not getting any of that.
No.
And you got to really drop a bag of sugar before that thing explodes on the floor up in your face. It's very pleasant, though. There's nothing wrong with it. It's pretty one-sided.
Yeah. I mean, and towards the bottom, I'm getting like not as much of the baking spice in the bottom as I would have expected from an añejo. I don't think.
Well, I'm getting a lot of alcohol in the center. I mean, I know you're sniffing it from the side. And if you don't understand that technique, folks, watch our Reposado review, where Todd explains this technique. It makes total sense to me because it's a cool little trick you can use with your Glencairn. So. And even initially in the Reposado, I was getting slightly like citrus, and I was getting like an orange blossom, maybe an orange oil, and just at the very top, and then it would just dissipate. It would just be gone. Yeah, I'm not getting that here in this one. It's deep though.
Yeah,
it's deep. Shall we dive in? Because it's pretty one-sided. And we're both getting the same thing. You're my guide here, so you know.
Okay. Much more in the mouth than on the nose.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I'm getting much better barrel notes as well.
Notes. Much more. Because that's what I was like on the Repo. I was like, why am I getting more note? Like I was getting more barrel on the Repo, but now I'm getting more barrel in my mouth on the
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. It's like the complete opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, right off the bat, I'm gonna say I could pair this with a cigar.
Oh, sure.
There's some real depth in here.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to hate this tequila, man. And I'll tell you why. If you haven't watched any of the other reviews, I'll explain to you in a little bit. But it's got some great mouthfeel, even though the tears and legs were runny. It's not coating the palate like the Reposado did.
Right.
It would leave a buttery residue, okay, on the Reposado that I wasn't sure where it was coming from, but it was butter.
Yep.
This one has none of that. This one is
No.
just pretty straightforward.
It really is. But yeah, there's a depth there that the Repo just doesn't have. But
No, I'm
that's
getting
not,
more.
it's not a criticism on the Repo. But
Yeah, the Repo didn't have the depth, but it had that butteriness that was kind of disconcerting to me because I wasn't sure where it was coming from. This one is more in line with what I was like, hoping for,
yeah.
you know, and even more. It's giving me that nice, more of the deeper barrel notes, bordering on, you know, maybe a little bit of the burnt brown sugar, a little bit of the
Like toffee.
I don't want to call it smoke, but
Yeah.
you know, like maybe the char from the barrel maybe was doing something like leaving an because I know in the Repo you sense clove, and I'll buy that. I think now if well, let me go one more time here because I think I want to try and see if there's any tobacco on the back end. Sometimes, you know, you'll get that.
I'm getting like a Heath bar because that dark chocolate and toffee. I'm getting kind of that. And I love Heath bars, so I'm one of those weirdos.
Yeah, you know, there's almost like a dried fruit on there too.
Yeah.
This is really nice.
It is. Nice little añejo here.
Yeah, it almost reacts like an extra añejo because you're getting like a borderline dried fruit, almost ripe fruit. You know, because if this were an extra añejo, you probably get more of the dry fruit, you know,
sure.
The prunes or the dried cherries or raisins.
Yep.
This one is more like a little bit of, I'm getting plums. I'm thinking plums.
Oh yeah. Yeah, when you're saying dried fruit, I'm like plum, almost a prune kind of a.
Yeah, almost, but not quite.
Not quite. Yeah.
Not quite.
Yeah. If I had a criticism, I still would like to see more agave, but that's always me. You know, and it's harder with an añejo to keep that agave around longer. You know, it's really tough to do.
Well, again, if you have that tab open, read the process that we read that they're telling us that they use to make this tequila.
I do have that tab right here. So they use it. It says our production process is steeped in tradition and features a unique milling process called using a tahona, a stone wheel which crushes the juices from the agave fibers. Those crushed fibers or bagazo are then used in the fermentation process to make use of more of the agave plant. This technique embraces the true character and flavor of the agave to create a complex yet smooth tequila with notes of agave and bursts of citrus. And maybe that's true for the Blanco, but we don't know since they didn't send this to us. But I would say for their añejo, it's almost toned down the agave a little bit more than I would like. I still want to have more agave, and I feel like with that process, if they're using the fibers, there should be a little bit more agave in there.
You would think so, because I mentioned to Todd that I had the tequila called Vivo, I think it's called Vivo, that Siempre makes, and they make it at another distillery where they're using agave fibers to distill.
Right.
Not only ferment, but to distill, which I think is a pisco technique. It's how they make pisco.
Yep.
Where they use the fibers of the grape in the distillation, which is wild. It's crazy because it's not, I can't think of any other tequilas years and years ago, and I've been drinking for almost 24 years now, especially tequila, where that's been possible. And we've had mezcals together where they're using the agave fibers, and at least for fermentation, and they leave a depth. They leave a fibrousness in the juice, whether they're using the fibers to distill or not. You'll sense it, you'll taste it. Now, I'm not getting any butteriness on this one. I'm getting a much longer finish. There's a much longer finish for me. There's more hot cinnamon, cinnamon that we sensed as pepper cinnamon in the Repo.
Yep. I
want the Blanco, man.
I know.
What happened? What happened?
It's like that. I mean, that's the baseline, right?
Well, if you're going to go through that much work Can you imagine what that Blanco is going to taste like?
That'd be good. I would think it'd be really good.
It'd be like borderline mezcal. I'm telling you. You're the Todd is not only a WSET #2 wine sommelier.
Yep.
He's of course a graduate of the Consumer Catador course.
Yep.
And he's also a bourbon steward. Now
know.
he's studying to be a master cheesemaker. What's the title?
Master artisan cheesemaker. Yeah.
Can you imagine if you had that Blanco? What kind? You would go bananas with the type of cheeses that you're going to construct and make to try to pair with that. You would be the only one in probably in the state of Colorado who's crazy enough to be able to do that. And
Maybe.
It's like Astral, give me the Blanco.
Yeah.
Why did you not send the Blanco?
Don't be shy.
What did you think, that we weren't going to like it?
Right.
I mean, we're not Instagrammers. We've been doing this for 24 years now. Get real.
Not that world.
Yeah, well, it's like, of course, I don't look that old because I'm drinking good tequila.
Yeah. See
what good tequila does for you? You don't need a plastic surgeon. You just need some more. Now that it's opened up, this is still my first pour. I'm getting more of the orange notes.
I definitely.
I would say more orange oil than
Yep.
in natural orange oil, folks. I'm not sensing any additives. I'm not, going there.
Yeah, it's much more citrus.
That's beautiful. What a beautiful nose.
Yeah. Yeah, much more citrus. The orange oil is great.
Yeah, and on the flavor, it was much more on the flavor profile where you were getting that dried fruit, dried plums. I would even go dried apricots, maybe.
Ooh, yeah.
Wow. Okay, here's the ins and outs, folks. This is why I'm a little suspect with this tequila. I'll tell you why. Todd read you the process. I'll read you the NOM number. Astral Tequila is no longer, of course, being made at 1137, which is La Cofradia. That was the original distillery. This is made at 1607, which is called Grupo Solave. You could actually find employees at Grupo Solave on LinkedIn if you're one of those folks like me, a nerd. There are 4 tequilas coming out of here. Natima, Astral are 2 tequilas. The other 2 are 818 and 8 Reserve by 818. That's it. And to our knowledge, we know, for those of us who are in the know, we know that they not only have a Taona and they have a shredder, they also have on site a diffuser. Whether they're making this with a diffuser, I don't believe so. Not these current batches.
Right.
But again, folks, you have to understand they're owned by Diageo. Those guys don't want to stay local. Those guys, they're worldwide. That's a global company. So the rules and regulations of tequila state that you can buy Blanco tequila in bulk from each other, from the other distilleries. But when you have a diffuser on site, you don't have to go anywhere. You just blend this with your other stuff, and when it's sent to the CRT to be tested, and before it's tested there, it's tested at your own lab, because in 2006, they instituted a law that stated that every distillery has to have their own lab on site. So before you send it to the CRT, you're testing it in your own lab. And as long as it's 100% agave tequila, you're going to pass.
Yep.
I would say, what do you think, Todd? You tell me, because you're of the two of us, you probably are the more discerning palate with a much wider palate on a palate. Okay. I mean, there are 2 different words, folks. Palate as in painting and palate as in tasting. Okay.
I mean, This is one I do like it a lot. It's a little lighter than I would expect it to be. But it's definitely one, knowing where it's coming from, I keep an eye on it, because like I said before, there's a Colorado whiskey that once they got bought by a multinational, the recipe changed, the process has changed, and it's
Well, they move it to another distillery, they move it someplace else.
the distillery is the same here in Colorado. They kept it in the same building. They just changed the recipe, double the output. Yeah. Yeah.
When you say double the output, that just means that you're fermenting a lot faster, because you got to distill it faster. You got to harvest it, and that's, it's easy to do with whiskeys or bourbons and ryes and vodkas, but with tequila, what did they told us how old these plants are, correct?
I think 6 years is what they said.
6 years.
I think so.
The general consensus is that agaves that are reputable, agave spirits or tequilas, if they're reputable, they're being harvested at 5 years old.
Yeah.
Now, with a diffuser, we know that for the last 3-4 years, probably since before the pandemic, they were harvesting 2 to 4 year old agave.
Yeah.
They're not even in the ground long enough to gain any characteristics of any terroir. Okay, so when they come out, in the end, you've got to put an additive in there to make it remind somebody of tequila.
Yeah,
it's got to be reminiscent of tequila. Some overdo it, and especially it's much tougher to hide in an aged spirit. Many experts will tell you it's very difficult. Some of us, I've been fortunate because I've had enough of these aged where they put an additive in it and the orange doesn't taste or smell as natural as this. If it's got an additive in it, the orange smell will come right up to you and you'll know it's a candied orange.
Yeah, this
doesn't come across that way.
And it doesn't address it that's on the website at all. I mean, the other one that we tasted did say that what was it? It was
aged in wine barrels, and it's additive free, but
they had extracts. I'm like,
yeah, no,
that
was all about copy and wording. And
yeah.
They had all that wrong.
Yeah. This doesn't say if it has additive on the website or the bottle. It says nothing about it.
Now, that doesn't mean anything. If it's not a big deal to you, it's not a big deal to us. Again, there's no such thing as being certified additive free.
Right.
You can be verified, but even the verification doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Okay. When you're talking Diageo, these guys are going to go to China. These guys are going to go to Europe. The verified additive free seal, that doesn't mean anything overseas. It only means something to certain parts of the United States.
Right.
So it means nothing. Really, the best judge would be our taste buds.
Yeah.
Do you like it enough to nominate it as a brand of promise? You tell me.
I do, actually.
I think so too. I think these batches that they sent us are
they're solid.
You have the wherewithal to make real stuff.
Yeah.
Whether they're going to continue making real stuff, keep an eye on. Like Todd said, keep an eye on it.
Yeah, good things happen.
You've seen it happen. You've tasted it. You know firsthand.
Yep.
And that's in another category. That's not even tequila.
Right.
I've seen it happen in tequila all the time.
Oh, sure.
But it's very pleasant nose. Great. I think it's bold enough to pair with a cigar. What about you? What about cocktails?
I would use this in actually probably more like an old fashioned.
Yeah. Okay.
Where I'm not going to bury it under like a lot of other flavors like coconut or citrus or whatever. If I'm using a higher end, like an añejo tequila, I want to bring out that definitely have the tequila coming through. And a tequila old fashioned, it can be a thing of beauty and joy.
I agree with you. And that dried cherry instead of a sweet cherry, like a dry cherry.
Yep.
Or even a dry. I don't know if that because I'm not a bartender. You are. Alex is. There's several guys, several TJs who like into cocktails. I would go like a dried orange rind. I would.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Instead of the dried cherry, or I would use like a dried orange rind.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know.
I mean, for this, I would use like an agave syrup instead of a regular simple syrup, just to help bring out those agave notes more. And then probably for my bitters, I actually make a citrus bitters. I probably hit it with a citrus bitters. So I make a bunch of different bitters. Actually, cherry bitters would be freaking great in this too. So
I really got to go hang out with you guys at 7,000 feet. I am only good for one cocktail, man. until I acclimate. I go to Albuquerque first just to acclimate to 5,000 feet. And then work my way up the state.
There you go. Drink your way up the state.
Till I make it where you are. And then go, okay, I'm ready, train. It's been a while, but once you live a mile high, it's not that difficult to be able to acclimate much quicker.
It's a lot easier.
I remember when I first moved there, I lived in Southern California all my life, which is sea level or below.
Right.
And when I moved to Albuquerque, it took me at least 30 days to acclimate. Yeah. And the reason I could tell is I'm a big gym rat. If you don't know that already, and I would go to the gym and I'd say, man, these same weights I was using at my gym in San Diego feel like they're 10 pounds heavier.
Oh yeah.
At a mile high, and I couldn't figure out why. And I finally put two and two together. It's like, oh well, I'm at a mile high. I'm at a much higher altitude, which affects not just making cakes.
Yeah,
but it affects a lot of things. Your wind, your breath. I remember after having lived there for a few years, we would have several Olympic marathon runners who go to Albuquerque to train because they're up at a mile high. So when they go compete, their oxygen intake is nothing. Right. They've already worked out for a month, 30 days, 60 days at a mile high. So when they go down to, whatever level, I swear to you, there wasn't a day I didn't drive by. There's one street that is the last street before you hit the freeway in Albuquerque and go to Amarillo. All right.
Yeah.
And it's called Tramway. And there is the biggest tramway in the United States is in Albuquerque, and it goes from the Sandia Mountains, which is the foot of the Rocky Mountains, down to ground level at 5,000 feet. And there wasn't a day that I didn't drive by there that I didn't see a guy from Kenya or somebody just trotting along like nothing going on, whereas all these Latinos and white guys are going, you're dragging their butt. These guys are trucking along, and you could tell when they were training for marathons, for LA Marathon, New York Marathon, Boston Marathon, the Olympics. And it's like, oh, you're not from here, are you?
Well, the U.S. Olympic ski team or the U.S. Olympic headquarters is in Colorado Springs.
Well, yeah, of course.
And that's why. So yeah,
that's why. Not only are they at a lot higher altitude, but the training facility there is.
Oh yeah, it's right there.
That's amazing. Yeah, not to mention the Air Force Academy.
And we tell guests all the time that when they come, like we talk to the guests at work, and where are you from? Oh, San Diego or Corpus Christi. I'm like, you're gonna want to slow down on that alcohol. And they're like, why? I said, one drink where you're home is your two drinks. One drink here is two drinks where you're home. It's a double. So it's like these guys are like, no, I can drink 6 Bud Lights at home. Like 2 into it, they're like, like I told you,
you can't. It will affect you.
Yeah,
the altitude is a big thing. It's like baking cakes, folks. If you're at a higher altitude, you got to adjust for that because the thing won't rise like you think it's going to rise.
No, I discovered that shortly after I moved here. I made chocolate cake. And it came out of the oven. I'm like, oh, heck yeah, I did it right. And then I'm like, oh, look at the fudge I made.
Now it's a brownie.
There wasn't a cake anymore.
Oh.
So
Where did you move from? I don't think I've ever
Denver.
asked you that. From where?
So I was living in Denver for about, I don't know, 15 years or so, and then moved up here where I am now. But prior to that, I was living in Massachusetts.
Oh, well, that's
yeah,
it. That's completely different. And
Yep.
salt air as well. I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
So
No, I didn't never. I don't think I've ever asked you that question. Then learn
Yeah, I
something
moved-
new every day from this. What made you move to Colorado? Why go there? Why didn't you just go, California?
yeah.
Or
Well,
Vegas?
originally, because I was actually I moved to Durango, Colorado in the 90s for a teaching job, and I worked at a private school in Durango for a number of years. Then decided I'm going to go back east because that's where I grew up, and then got back east. I'm like, oh God, I hate it here.
Yeah, but the snow there isn't any better than the snow up where you
Oh,
live.
it's worse. It's the weather in like New England. Those in New England, you hear the nor'easters. Those are real and they're brutal. Like it's a bone chilling cold. Your bone marrow freezes. It's so cold.
Wow.
Yeah, it's awful. And so winters here are much better.
What I've noticed when I moved, my first visit, I was living in San Diego. My first visit was to Denver. And I think I told you this in our interview, our
Yeah.
open bar. I've never seen Denver outside of snow. Never. My first visit was in December. We were visiting family. The gal I was living with had family in Denver. She was from Golden. Well, she was from Wheat Ridge, and she had a sister who lived in Golden. So it was all snow, right?
Yep.
And I got off the plane from San Diego, which, by the way, is very humid in the wintertime. I mean, if you're close to the ocean, when we talk about bitter cold, I'm talking about humid, bitter cold. And if you had any injuries, like if you play football or baseball, it's like in the wintertime, the humidity would start, your knees start to ache.
Yeah.
The shoulder injury you had when you were 15 would hurt. And so it was kind of like, why does it hurt? But as soon as I got off the plane in Denver, I inhaled. It's like, it was invigorating.
Sure.
The dry air was like, oh, this is different. I can get it, right? But it wasn't until I moved to Albuquerque and spent my first 6 months, I would not say 30 days, but first 6 months, you really have to acclimate.
Yeah.
And I really didn't start drinking tequila until I was in my 40s, or smoking cigars at that point. So I'm a real late bloomer when it comes to that, because I'm only 42. Mm-hmm. And so anyway,
okay.
Yeah, I'll believe that. Yank my chain. So I get that, and having spent time in Santa Fe, having spent time in Taos, it really is. Once you're at a mile high, though, acclimation is a lot easier. But if you're from a sea level, or if you're from California or the high desert, even the high desert, it's not the same. You really have to pace yourself, because do they still have oxygen bars?
Oh yeah, those are real things. We actually had one up at work not too long ago. Some guests brought in, they set up a whole oxygen bar for their guests. It was crazy.
And an oxygen bar, not only is it, they flavor the oxygen with orange and pina colada and whatever the hell else.
Yeah.
But you'll see when you watch football games, folks, and you see the Denver Broncos, or they're playing the Philadelphia, the Eagles, and the guys on Philadelphia are all inhaling oxygen. This is because they're all trying to acclimate, like, where it takes us 30 days. These guys are athletes. They only get like 3 days at the most, right?
Yep.
So if you're not used to that, it's a real thing.
Yep.
So, but anyway,
part is when you go to, so it also works the other way. So a few years ago, my partner and I went down to a buddy's wedding in St. Augustine, Florida. And so we get there, go through the ceremony, and then the reception hits, and 3 margaritas in. I'm like, can you put tequila in this for me, please?
Yeah. You're going, where's my booze?
Yeah.
And I order a side of tequila.
You're right.
Because your blood is rich and oxygenated. That
felt nothing.
The rule of thumb, like in California right now, I'm off and on, I'm studying to just get my server's license. Nice. Not that I need one.
Sure.
It's just that I figured it's like getting a CPR, certification.
Yeah.
You figure one day I'm not going to be able to, I can't save anybody's life, but one day I'm on a plane somewhere and I'm going to have to punch you in the heart. You know, I got to know what to do. So it's the same with serving. I don't usually, I'm the hired gun. I speak about it, but I don't touch the booze. But it's always good, especially in California. It's always good to have that server's license. And the rule is that for every cocktail, every drink, you get 1 glass of water, because it takes your liver an hour to process the alcohol out of your body.
Right.
But that's only at California. They're not taking into account altitude.
Right.
Right. Whether high or low altitude, and length of time, you know, spending in one altitude versus the other.
Yeah. Changes it. It changes.
So it does change. It's a big thing. I don't even know how we got off on that subject.
Who knows?
But here you go. That's why you watch us, folks. It's because we're sipping off the cuff. And, you know, I think, again, Astral Añejo, this iteration, I think, is a Brand of Promise nominee. But as Todd would say, the caveat emptor, wow, there's something. I don't even speak Latin. Your caveat is keep an eye on the brand.
Yeah.
If this is one of your favorites, and it's what's our price point on this one? I think they gave us an MSRP. What was it?
I think like 40, 30, 40.
Let me check very quickly, just so I know. I can tell you what the press release says. What's in Colorado, that's going to be different.
Yep.
$34.99.
Okay.
But I'm going to go back to these folks, and I'm going to demand a Blanco, because if the Blanco is that root of this juice, I want to taste it.
Totally.
I want to see what I'm tasting, because I don't. Otherwise, you're just giving me smoke and mirrors.
Right.
So you're telling me one thing, and I don't know it because I don't have a Blanco.
There was a mead company out here in Colorado. Unfortunately, it's since shut down, but they had a bunch of different styles of mead, and their base one was called Nowhere to Hide. For that reason, they're like, "Yep, you know, they have these spices and all these other adjuncts they added into some of their other meads, but their base one was called Nowhere to Hide." And they're like, "Yep, because you can't hide." That's my parrot making the noises, by the way.
No, that's fine. Well, you know, we've done tastings where you can hear the parrot singing, and you know, the warmer the weather, the more the parrot loves it, right? So,
absolutely,
yeah.
But yeah, it was, you know, their thing was, there's nowhere to hide if this is our base. So
I think there would be a great name for Astral to name their Blanco Nowhere to Hide.
Yeah. Right.
I would love to taste the Blanco. Right now, I know it's made at a place where they have a diffuser. I don't sense it.
Right.
We have had tequilas on Sipping Off the Cuff where they're made with a diffuser. We know that they're using additives. We get it.
Yeah.
We're not sensing it in these batches that they're sending to us.
Right.
Okay. But for those folks who are watching us, let us know what you're doing with it. If you sensed it, is it too sweet for you? Is it too dry for you? Do you not believe it? Did you not even know that they had a diffuser on that distillery?
Right.
Let us know what you're doing with it. And if you've had a Blanco that comes from here, send it to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't have it. And they've got some decent bubbles and it looks like some juice. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to say Brand of Promise nominee, but you know, with an asterisk, like when the Houston Astros won the World Series, we'll put an asterisk on it because we all know how they got there.
Yep.
But anyway, that's our take on Astral Tequila. If you've had it, let us know in the comments. If you're watching us on Facebook, or you're watching us on YouTube, or even Instagram for that matter, leave us a comment. Tell us what you're doing with it, how much you're paying for it, where you could find it, what you sensed, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. Share it with all your other tequila aficionados out there. But bottom line is, whatever you do, tomar sabiamente.
Sip wisely.